better. Okay. So welcome back. So we'll get started. As I said in the previous video, that we will look at the e-waste management rules. So I will cover the rule that was there, which is the first came a few years back, and there was a revision which happened in 2015 and incorporated in 2016. So we'll talk about those e-waste management rules with the background. And again, we are talking about the Indian rule, and later on we'll try to compare our rules with global rules and some of the issues globally. So in this particular module and probably the next module, we'll look at some of the background about the rule, what is the regulatory framework in India, objective of e-waste rules, application of to the stakeholders, what are the responsibility of the individual stakeholders, responsibility of all state pollution control board and Central Pollution Control Board, guidelines of the initial e-waste rules of 2011, and then what are the newer changes that came in 2015. So those we will talk about in this module, and we'll try to let's see how far we can go, and then maybe in the next one. So with that, so in terms of we already some of these stuff we already talked about, so I'll go a little bit faster, and you can always post questions on discussion forum if you don't understand anything. But we've already talked about what is e-waste, anything when it becomes obsolete or unusable. So there is nothing new there. It's obsolete or it's just a second. So it's an obsolete and unusable. So that's what unusable electrical products, that's what we call electronic waste or waste electronic equipment. So over 1000, there are 1000 chemicals identified in the e-waste stream. So that's a lot of chemicals out there in the electronic waste, and these chemicals have potential to disrupt hormonal system as well as reproductive functions, and can also cause certain types of cancer. So these are nasty stuff, bad stuff, we all know about that. It does contaminate soil, surface water, groundwater, adverse effect on human health and environment. That's the reason why we are studying this particular topic. I explained that to you yesterday as well, that of course there are certain bad effect from improper e-waste management. That's why we are talking about it. So in terms of the regulatory framework in India, how things started for electronic waste management in 2011, specifically on the 12th May 2011, and e-waste management rules was first came out, and it was given one year was given for the implementation. So it came out notified in 12th May 2011, and with the intent that it will become effective from May 2012. Unfortunately, even now we are not able to follow it what was proposed in this 2011 rule, just because the infrastructure to support that is being developed. And as I mentioned in the previous video, the competition between the formal and informal sector is there, and the informal sector being able to give some money to the waste producers, the formal sector is losing on that part. So basic objective was to put an effective mechanism to regulate the generation, collection, storage, transportation, import, export of environmental sound recycling, import, export, and then environmentally sound recycling, treatment and disposal of e-waste. So that's the basic objective of this regulatory framework. As for any regulatory framework, that would be its ability to control and to make sure things are done properly. This does include refurbishment, collection system, producer responsibilities, reducing the waste destined for final disposal. So in terms of the e-waste management, I think we talked about that briefly earlier as well. If you think electronic waste, there are two types of e-waste in India. One, the waste that is being produced in the country itself, and at the same time we have a certain amount of waste coming into the country from abroad. and that is also happening, where the waste is actually getting imported into the country, and that amount of waste is also pretty substantial, which is coming from developed countries, from US or from European Union and other places, and then they are getting recycled in India in a very crude way. So that is also there, which needs to be which does come under this e-waste management rule, because in terms of the management of that particular e-waste, there are, of course, first of all, those waste should not come to India, and it's really unfortunate that they do. And it's many times when we talk about those electronic waste coming to India, we have a tendency to just put all the blames to those developed country. Of course, the developed country, there are people, there are companies out there, they should not send it over there, over here. As per their rule, it should not come, but many times what happens, it comes in the name of charity, for giving some old computers, old working computers to the poor people in India, in the villages in India, and by the time it arrives here, it actually dead on arrival. It doesn't work, and so maybe out of 100 computers that comes for charity, 75 is waste, 25 may be working. So, and those 25 working will also become waste in few years down the line. So that's those type of things happens, but that 75 which is dead on arrival, there are people in India actually who are waiting for it. So it's not, we cannot put all the blames to the Western countries that they are sending all these e-waste to India. We have people in India who wants those e-waste to come in. There is a nexus. So there is it's not a one-way traffic. So it's of course there are people sitting here who wants those electronic waste to come so that they can make some money out of that. They don't, because it's same as, say, that the way the e-waste is recycled in the informal sector in India, it cannot, that kind of processes will never be allowed in developed countries, be it in European Union or in US or Australia, New Zealand, wherever. So it's a much more expensive to recycle e-waste in those countries, so they just dumped it over here, and there we have our fellow countrymen, some of them who wants to make money out of that, they are ready waiting for those garbage to come in, and they make money out of that. So it's basically, it's a nexus which is there, which is running it. It's not only the fault of people from the Western world. So that aspect was also covered in this particular rule, because that created a lot of hues and cries in the media in recent years. And then in 2015, e-waste management rules under Environmental Protection Act, it was notified on 10th of June. Objective are the same as 2011, but there are some omissions and there are some additions. Some of things have been clarified, some of things have been made much, has been streamlined. So we'll talk about those stuff as well over here. So again, what is the objective of the e-waste rule? Objective is, of course, to minimize the illegal recycling and to promote safe recovery operation by channelizing e-waste to registered e-waste recyclers. So that's again where we are, there are some registered recyclers which you can find on the website. Many times they are not in a working condition, you call them, they will not even pick up the phone. So those things are there. Then extended responsible to producers to manage the system of e-waste. To manage the system of e-waste collection, take back and channelizing to a registered dismantler and recycler. So that's where this extended producer responsibility, that is also the way we are trying to implement it is a bit questionable, and I explained that in the previous video as well, that rather than having say if there are 10 different type of laptop, if you look at, you can have Sony, you can have Dell, you can have LG, no, I don't think LG is it, but Acer, and there are so many, Samsung, Panasonic also makes them laptop and other stuff. So there are maybe 10 different companies which makes a laptop, and then Lenovo, and then you want to have each of these companies set up their own recycling center, own collection center. That's will not work, because say I'm sitting in Kharagpur type of town, which is like a few lakh population. If every of these brands you can find in the market, but if every of these brand company has to set up a small shop here to collect this e-waste, directly, that doesn't make sense, because that's not going to work, because they will never do it, because it's economically will not make sense to them. So rather than that, if we have the money coming into a central pool where people can bid for that, and then the local person, whoever is interested in, he or she can set up a shop where the recyclables can be taken over there, and that company can represent all the different vendors out there, and the money, government can charge some money to these companies based on amount of electronics that they sell, say in the state of West Bengal, and then there could be a thing from the every state level we can have something like that, like a stewardship program. So, and the other thing, that the objective is to reduce the hazardous substances, that's which is rather than in electrical, to use more environmental friendly, to regulate the generation, collection, export and transportation and all those kind of stuff, that is of course there. So, in terms of rule, what it has 6 chapters, 3 schedules and 6 forms. So, there is a procedure for authorization. There is a procedure for authorization, very similar to the municipal solid waste management rule. These forms are there, where there is a procedure for authorization of producers, dismantler and collection agencies and recyclers, procedures for registration, renewal of registration of recycler. The producer of electrical electronic equipment is responsible for the entire life cycle of its own branded product, and in particular environmentally sound end of life management, facilitate collection and take back. That's where things are not working at, it's very difficult for it to work actually, unless there is some sort of organization set up which can help it make it work. There is a liability of producers, collection agencies, transporters, dismantler, reduction of hazardous substances used in e-equipment. So, that is those things are spelled out in this rule. So, in terms of applications, these rules shall apply to every producer, consumer or bulk consumer. These things are defined, which are they are involved in manufacture, sale, purchase and processing of electrical electronic equipment. Shall not apply to batteries, because battery has a separate rule. Shall not apply to micro and small enterprises. The battery is a separate rule. Shall not apply to micro and a small enterprise radioactive waste, because they have respective development acts. So, there is a different act for that. So, those doesn't come into picture here. So, in terms of different responsibilities, there is a responsibility of the producer. So, what is the responsibility of the producers? Producer of electrical electronic equipment shall be responsible for collection of e-waste generated during manufacturing, that is fine, and from the end of life of their product with the principles of extended producer responsibility. This is where I have based on my experience of different countries that I have been and working at different countries, I have certain reservations that if you make each of these producers responsible for collecting their own garbage, it is actually multiple work done, and every of these producers are just looking for a minute quantity of electronic waste coming out. So, economy of scale doesn't work. So, that is what I was trying to say, that instead of having these individual companies doing it, let us get the money from these individual companies to a central pool. What we always worry about is whenever there is a money involved, we say there will be corruption and nothing will work out. That problem is there, but as long as we can get rid of that problem, if we have a central quasi government body or a semi government body which facilitates with this kind of collection, then this is more practical, because asking each and every company to take their own electronic waste back, it will be a problem. It can be done through through the mail back program maybe. They don't have to, they can put a mail back program, that can be done, but for the big stuff, mail back program also doesn't work that much, and there will be costly. There is a cost involved in the transportation of the individual person, rather than it can be done together towards having a cooperative or those kind of system. So, should ensure collection and channelization of authorizing collection agencies. So, we put a lot of we have a habit of putting a lot of responsibilities on collection and channelizing of authorizing collection agencies, setting up collection centers or take back systems either individually or collectively. So, collectively makes more sense, individually to me doesn't make much sense. Financing and organizing a system individually or by joining a scheme. So, this scheme, when they say joining a scheme, that who will monitor this scheme, who will facilitate this scheme, that we do not know. that needs to be spelled out, and I think any semi-government agencies should do it, because they will be able to talk to them. Others, people may not listen to those any other organization. Provide contact details and create awareness about hazards through publication, advertisements, posters. Affix a visible, legible symbols on products to prevent e-waste from being dropped in garbage. So those when they are talking about garbage, they are talking about regular garbage. So that's the responsibility of the producer. Then there is a continuation of, let's say, obtain authorization from a State Pollution Control Board, maintain record regarding the e-waste handle, and then filing annual returns that they have to do on 30th day of June. So that's on annual report needs to be submitted. So that's the responsibility of the producers. The responsibility of the collection center is to again obtain an authorization. So basically that's a permit, and then ensure that e-waste is stored in a safe manner. It is registered and it is sent to registered dismantler or recycler. So that's where again we have registered dismantler and recyclers, but they are not able to get much garbage. No damage is caused to the environment during storage and transportation of e-waste. So that's their responsibility. File annual returns, maintain record. So those things are there. In terms of bulk consumer will be something like a huge organization which uses a lot of electronics and electrical items, such as, for example, IIT Kharagpur will be a bulk consumer because we have lots of computers in here. We buy lots of computers in the year. Many of the like a lot of computer becomes obsolete as well, so which becomes electronic waste. So in this e-waste generation by them should be channelized to authorized collection center. So as a organization, we need to send it to an authorized collection center. We cannot just give it to anyone. It has to go to an authorized collection center as per the new rule, or registered dismantler or recycler, and is returned to the pickup or take back service provided by the producers. Or if the producer is, for example, Dell, if we buy lots of Dell computers, and if Dell has a take back program, we can always give it back to Dell and probably get some discount or something from them. So shall maintain records of e-waste generated in the Form 2 and disposal registered recycler in Form 3. So I'm not sure how many institutions do that, but that's what they are supposed to do. Dismantler, they have to get again authorization and registration. So this is for SPCB, and ensure that no damage is caused to the environment during storage. So these are pretty general statement, and that they don't have that process do not have adverse effect on health and environment. So this, if you look at if you just go on Google and look at how the things have been done in the informal sector, they are actually causing a lot of adverse effect on their health as well as the environment. So, but in terms of accordance with guideline published from time to time, and ensure that dismantled e-waste, segregated non-recyclables, non-recoverable components sent to the registered recycling facility for recovery of materials. File a return in Form 3. Do not process e-waste for recovery refining until it is registered with SPCB. So that's the responsibility of we were talking about. This is the responsibility of a dismantler. So many times dismantlers and recyclers are together. So, but this is the responsibility of the dismantler. Then recycling of a recycler is again get the permit. So this thing you will find common to all, authorization and registration, and make available all records in Form 3 to SPCB or Pollution Control Board. So that's, you need to make them available for the record. Then responsibility of a State Pollution Control Board or a Pollution Control Committee. Preparation of inventories of e-waste from that particular state, granting authorization, monitoring of compliance, maintaining information, taking action against violation of the state standard, ensure that collection center should not store e-waste for a period exceeding 180 days. So that's they are not supposed to store more than that. They have to give it to like a dismantler and recyclers. Central Pollution Control Board, again kind of one level up. They look at the State Pollution Control Board, preparation of guidelines, assessment of e-waste generation, documentation, compilation, recommendation. So all those general stuff, conduct training and awareness program, submit annual report, set targets, provide initiative for IT industries for reducing hazardous substances. So those things are done by Central Pollution Control Board. So, this is in terms of like some of the guidelines for implementation of e-waste rules. The guidance document has been developed in terms of how to implement it. So, to help producers, consumers, dismantler to effective compliance, to provide guidance of collection center, dismantler, to help producer for understanding the concept and the scope of EPR. So, a guidance document has been published, which is available. And in terms of the e-waste management rules of 2015, what they did, it broadened the scope by including several major provisions. Earlier there were several defects in the rules for stakeholders which prevented their proper implementation. So, the new draft rule has clarified something, had clarity and laid down responsibility in various stakeholders in clear terms, which we will go over. So, there were some incorporated new additions such as refurbishers who repair, use electrical, electronic equipment, dealers and producer responsibility organizations are some of the inclusions made in 2015, which was not there. Another thing was refurbishers have to channelize the e-waste to a collection center or to a dismantling or recycling facility. The new rules, dealer have to mandate it to collect e-waste in a box or a bin. PROs can take the responsibility of a group of producers for collection and channelization of e-waste generated from the end of life of their product. So, those things have been added. And another new feature is deposit refund scheme, where you can deposit, you will have some, under this a portion of sale price shall be retained by the producers and be refundable to consumers when the end of life of products are channelized according to the prescribed methods. So, here there was always some sort of debate on how it will be done, like what will the modalities of how it can be done, because we always worry about say most of the time what happens is you go to a big city to buy your electronics. Say even if you are staying in so many people like to go to Delhi or other places where they like to buy the electronics from there, because sometimes they are cheaper, you get more variety. But when it gets bad, say you are sitting in Kharagpur, now you are not going to Delhi to replace it. So, not you are going to Delhi to give it back to get some money, get your money back. So, in that case, how it will work? So, those things were there. So, it was one of there could be several ways to get around it. One way which kind of it could be that things get linked to the Aadhaar number now, because we do have Aadhaar number which is becoming mandatory for, it is not mandatory as per Supreme Court, but it is pretty much mandatory for all that for many things that we do now. So, most of the people will have the Aadhaar number. So, if somehow this Aadhaar number is linked to it and the Aadhaar is linked to the bank account, so it is whatever, whenever he like the person goes and deposits it back, since it's that money can be transferred into his account, he doesn't have to go and physically like submit or show the old receipt that he or she had. It should be all put under one central scheme like that. So, the new rules have tried to simplify some of the formalities. It now asks producers to seek authorization of carrying out EPR from SPCB in case they are implementing in a particular state, or CPCB in case of Pan India implementation. So, those authorizations have been simplified. EPR is explained in the new rules, like producers of e-waste will now to seek authorization for carrying out EPR from SPCB and CPCB to submit state specific plans, which is again screened by CPCB. So, they have to have the plan for that. So, there is a hazardous substances, they have added a note on that as per 2011 rules, reduction of hazardous substances, that is called ROHS, was to be complied by producers of electrical and electronic equipments within a period of 2 years. Since the rules were notified in 2011, it was supposed to be implemented in 2012. So, even from there, if you look at 2014, definitely by 2014 they have to comply, but still majority of electronics were non-compliant. So, the new draft rule have covered that point, and it says the CPCB will conduct random sampling of EE placed in the market to monitor and verify whether they have reduced their hazardous substances or not. So, those things is being kind of stressed upon in the new rule. So, there are some drawbacks and limitations in terms of the rule. The penalty provisions, like whoever fails to follow with the rules will be punishable with imprisonment, which may be extended to 5 years, or with a fine which may be extended up to 1 lakh. So, these are the same provisions which are there in 2011. Probably it is too less. If stringent penal provisions could have been made, which can make them to stay away from violating rules. And and most of the 90% of the e-waste generated in the country is handled by informal sector, but the rule is totally silent on the issue. That rule is not talking about informal sector at all. So that's again, say the problem will not get solved until we identify that yes, this is a problem. So and that could be part of the solution too. So informal sector, whether it's a municipal solid waste or electronic waste, informal sectors are there, they will be there, and I don't think any political party, any political establishment will try to get into and then take their all livelihood away, because it's a very sensitive issue. There's a social issue. They also need to make their living. They have been making living in this that way. But what can easily be done is bring them into a formal sector, merging, like having a marriage between this informal and formal sector by giving some of this skill. All these Skill India mission and different missions that we talk about, a startup or those different missions that we are talking about, that should help this informal sector, because they are also part of our country. It's not that they are very much part of, they also have the same right that you and I have. So they have been working on this area. Yes, it's may not be 100% kind of so quote unquote legal way of doing their job, but they have to make a living. So in that case, and they are doing a decent job actually, in terms, at least in terms of collection and dismantling. What problem comes when they go into processing of those, try to recover of those rare earth and precious metal. So, but if you don't talk that about since more than 90% of the waste is done by the informal sector, but we don't talk about it at all in the rule, in the municipal solid waste management rule, at least we are talking about them, let's formalize them. In e-waste management rules, we have kept totally quiet. So that's not really going to work. So it has to be like addressed. It is essential to release the long-term policy on e-waste and integrate the informal sector in the mainstream. Overall, the rule has incorporated new additions with the goal of better management of e-waste in the country. So let's stop here, and then we'll go over some of these e-waste management rules in more in detail. We'll go over each one of these components in a little bit more detail in the next video, and that will cover our coverage of e-waste management rules for in the Indian scenario. And so that's with that, let's close this video. Again, any questions, any clarifications, if there is any you want to add something to the discussion. Some of you may be working, some of you who are working in electronic waste area, if you are from a e-waste management company, please share your thoughts. Let's us learn from your experience. See, everybody can learn. There is no age where people can stop learning. We can learn until we die. So just share your experience. If you have something new to add, feel free to do that. Put it on the discussion forum so that we all can learn, we all can debate on that. And please do that survey on electronic waste which have been given to you. Please do that so that we can use that information and make a nice summary of both MSW survey that you did earlier and this survey. We'll put a nice video together and then do that at the end of this course, so that we'll share that information with each other. Again, thank you, and I'll see you again in the next video.